And we're live.
Oh, hi everybody.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Uncharted Conversations. Another great, fantastic, amazing, exciting episode that we have for everybody tonight. I have my lovely co-host, Miss Josie Haas, here with me. As always, I call her my partner in crime. How
Thank
you doing?
you. Good. Right. How are you?
Yeah, we're tired because the heat kicked our ass today. If anybody has been on the East Coast, they know that it's been almost 100 degrees, or it felt like 100 degrees out there.
It is hot.
You could fry an egg on the hood of your car, literally. But we're here to exorcise demons.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a couple of gentlemen that we're going to introduce to everybody. But before we do, let's get all the boring stuff out of the way. I'm going to leave that part to you, my sidekick here.
Oh, the boring stuff?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the boring stuff because you make it exciting. So how can people watch us?
Okay, you can watch us on YouTube and Facebook.
Right, and where can they?
You can go to our website, www, like everything starts, www.hosparanormal.com.
Yeah, I think the heat got to us a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we're a little sun happy.
A little slap happy.
All right. We have an email, hosparanormal@gmail.com. You guys like some help? You have questions about the guests, the topics, what we're talking about? Feel free to shoot us an email. We don't hold back. We're easygoing. We don't bite unless you want us to. But
he does.
Yeah, I do. But anyways, I'm excited to have these guys on. We're continuing our discussion into the darker side of the paranormal. We have a couple of demonologists. Don't be afraid of them. They're really nice guys. They're fun guys. They're very entertaining in the paranormal community. They do events all over the place. If anybody's familiar with Mr. Carl Johnson, he's one of half of the other twin, Mr. Keith Johnson, originally part of TAPS, aka Ghost Hunters, on the Sci-Fi Channel many years ago. They were the original Ghost Hunters who actually helped the Perrin family and the famous Conjuring House in Rhode Island. They had helped them many years ago and worked closely with the Warrens.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have their own paranormal team up in the New England area. And they work with James. Carl and James Annitto hooked up, and they call themselves Duo Daemonologie. They're trying to modernize and, kind of make demonologists more better, have more better understanding. But we're going to talk about their approach to demonology because they have a new twist to what their goal is and what their approach is with demonology. James and I and my wife go back a few years. James took me under his wing when I became an affiliate with the Dominion Ministry Network. James helped establish the Dominion Ministry Network a few years ago. And I've been working with James closely with private cases and events and stuff like that. James is also a member of Carl's group. He works with his paranormal group, and I believe he's part of the tech crew or tech team or whatever. But we can get into that when we introduce these guys to our audience. So I gave everybody, a little background about them. Gonna get these guys in. What's up, guys?
Hey, guys!
James is under possession, but we think it's temporal. And no dominoes, I spoke so, yeah.
I'm Dr. Bakeman on the other side, and I have wires connected that when he lies, I'm going to zap him.
Power of Christ compelled me.
Or was it that pork taco you had that kind of brought that on,
The taco demons.
Because you like that hot sauce on it.
Taco demons.
Yeah.
That's how you keep demons away.
Yeah, that'll do it. Keep some house pets away, too, and some company away. Yeah. Well, it's so good to see you guys,
Yes, thank you for having me.
We really like your show because your format is just like conversational, but you're not afraid to broach new territory and, go where, some hosts and, some paranormal researchers will shy away from,
Yeah.
The demonology, like we don't get invited everywhere.
Yeah.
You say we're demonologists, we get the best table because nobody wants to sit near us.
Yeah. We have bad mojo about you.
The name itself has a stigma to it, but that is not a stigmata, but a stigma to it.
Right.
And that is beneficial in a way because it's riveting. It may be in some ways misleading and like antiquated, but also when somebody says demonologist, the person sit up and take notice. Like, what are you guys into? What do you do?
Yeah.
So then we get a chance to explain our approaches.
Yeah.
Which is, as you mentioned, Matt, is to bring demonology into the 21st century, which is kind of a conundrum.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it is a conundrum. And
Yeah.
you know, I
It's
think
been around for a long time.
what is it?
I'm sorry. It's been around for many centuries.
Yeah, 1600. Well, no, yeah, 1600s.
I was like something like
15.
1592 or 1598.
Yeah,
I think it's 1598. But yeah, I mean the late 16th century. That's way back. That's right after the Middle Ages and that later Renaissance. I've got to say about Josie's name. I like your name too, Matt. But Josie, you know that was Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp's wife's name was Josie. Josephine.
That's
right.
Yep.
And they called her Josie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Wyatt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think he was better looking than I am.
If you name Josie, you have to be feisty. You have to fit your name somehow.
Oh yeah.
You don't think like, oh, Josie, she's nice at parties. She doesn't say anything really offensive.
Hey, come on.
You say
Those are the
Josie.
Pussycats.
Yeah, wait, Josie, like, oh, you're going to have some trouble. You sure you want to invite Josie? Okay. Be forewarned.
Well,
Josie's
you know,
coming.
when you invite Josie, it's going to be a good party.
And nice party girl, party name.
Yeah.
It's a nice name, Josie. You are the only Josie I know.
Thank you.
Well, it's good. It's good to see you guys again. You know, we've known each other for a little while. James and I go back a few years. Carl, we recently connected a couple of years ago, and you guys are great. I love your approach about
Yes.
demonology. Very knowledgeable. You guys are like smart people in the field. You know, let's talk about your approach. How did you guys get connected to each other? Let's tell the audience what is Duo Daemonologie and what is your approach.
Well, I think it's easy. You know, I was part of Carl's tech group when we were Beyond the Veil Paranormal. Beyond the Veil Paranormal, I was his tech manager. That's how Carl and I first kind of got integrated with each other. And you know, one of the things is when Carl and I first met, it was through a bunch of different people.
Yeah, mutual friends, mutual associates, and colleagues.
Were on a show with him on a haunting called Demon Attack.
Demon Attack, there's a reason, yes.
Yeah.
And it's not that the investigation happened to make a show. It's the investigation was going on.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a full-blown demonic case. And the investigation was ongoing. And I was contacted by a production company. They wanted to know what I was up to. I said, well, I got something that's gangbusters now. So they documented our investigation. But they didn't get in the way. They weren't obtrusive. It was, you know, it wasn't like in the Ghost Hunters days where, you know, the show dominates the actual event. Right. In this case, they just could follow us around with cameras and stop and interview us from time to time. So it's very real what you see, what was happening there. And that's, James knew these people.
And then basically, you know, Carl and I got into deep conversation. I was very interested in demonology. I have a very big love for King James and how his version of the Bible kind of helped the English language become what it is today. And even though I'm not very familiar with the English language because it's very vast, you know,
that's a big language.
I have a lot of respect for how, you know, it inspired William Shakespeare to write Macbeth and so on, and it has really been a very deep understanding to literature. And
if it wasn't for demonology, you and I never would have become antiquated in the first place, would we?
Yeah.
No?
And
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's one way of looking at it.
Yep.
And so basically, you know, time went through, you know, we went our separate ways, and Carl and I had started lecturing together again at local events. And basically, you know, I had basically an epiphany that why don't people, like, yes, the Dominion Ministry was created by me and, you know, quite a few other great people, and I'm still glad it still has some continuity to it after my leaving it due to my own separate things, of course, and I'm glad it has done well, and it does continue doing well for the people out there that need assistance. But, you know, basically, Carl and I had worked together previously, worked
Yeah.
very well, and I have adapted and changed and become a young man instead of a child. And I've always had respect and looked up to him.
I guess I became more man because I just kept getting older.
Yeah, you just kept getting older.
Yeah, so I just kept aging. You became a man, I became older man.
Well, that was a problem. The thing is, though, I thought of the Dominion ministry did what it did, but demonology still has its misunderstandings, and even and I don't say this rudely to any of the members, even members within the ministry did not understand what a demonologist fully intact was. And I thought, how could I get this mission across? How could I get this word across? How can we change from demonology written by King James? And because there is a lot of misunderstandings, and there's still misunderstandings because nothing we really do is factual. There's nothing empirical to what we do necessarily. But we can at least say what it is not, and what you can look forward to. And I didn't think anybody I could do it with was other than Carl Johnson.
Thank you.
And I've worked with the Ralph Sarchis, the John Zaffis. I worked with a lot of great people out there that Carl has also worked with it or have heard of or communicated as well in some demonology brotherhood and sisterhood we have. I think I couldn't see anybody else. It was Carl. And
thank you.
Carl and I both had that same mission and understanding, I guess, of where this had to go, and it's been something that we've been doing ever since.
Yeah, one thing about epiphanies, they need direct sunlight. You can't keep them in the back of your garden. You place your epiphanies in the front; they'll be okay. Watering too. Watering.
Well, we need lots of water.
In this kind of weather, it's so easy to let the epiphanies die because
Well, it's
direct sunlight.
Well, there's a lot of sunlight right now because it's hot and Satan's ball side right now.
Well, we don't have to worry about James.
That fast so that nobody, they have to bleep you whenever you talk.
James, you have Carl to look after you, and vice versa. You look after him.
We got each
other. Yeah.
It's not that we never have differences of opinions and even definitions sometimes, but we're on the same page with this mission. And we realize, James and I both realize that, and sometimes we finish each other's sentences, because we think that much alike. It's always going to have a stigma. You cannot legitimize demonology and keep that name and have everything go smoothly because, part of it is the outrage of that name, demonology. People are going to say, "Whoa, what are you guys into? Why don't you just be paranormal investigators like we see in the shows? Why do you have to demonize it and turn it?" Well, somebody has to, and it's it's going to have that, but it gives us a chance. If people are interested, it gives us a chance to explain what we mean by demonology. We have a definition of demonology that is the systematic study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits. Now, there is academic demonologist and demonology, which is scholastic, just researching, and there is applied demonology. We actually intervene and counsel people.
Using the academic.
Yeah, you have you need the academia in there in your toolbox, but applied is when you try to send people contact you and say, I think I have a demon in my house. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And that's like, I would equate demonic investigation to having a big ball of string or twine, and you're trying to take that apart. Or wire hangers. You got a whole closet full of wire hangers, and you're trying to take them apart. Darn it, there's another one. It's really unraveling a lot because you need to know the source of the disturbance and how it's affecting the person, and then try to convince the subject that there is hope, that these things aren't all powerful, these influences. It's a bag of mixed nuts, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's not just the paranormal realm we have to, because when we say paranormal, when we say the paranormal, that means it's unknown, right? So in retrospect,
apart from the norm,
it's apart from the norm. So
it's the new norm or something.
It's a wide verse, but when you're dealing with people in their homes, you have to understand human dynamics. You have to understand trauma. You have to understand a lot of different elements. You don't have to be experts in them, but you have to be very well versed, familiarized with different aspects of dealing with human, dealing with the philosophy, dealing with religion. Because even though I'm Christian based and I know Carl is as well, and he has dabbled in many different forms.
I'm
not.
a dabbler. Yeah. I dabble with dieting every once in a while too, but I don't keep with it too long.
But in retrospect, we have to have a deep understanding of other people's roots. So that's what we have to go beyond the understanding of what are ghosts or what are demons. We have to understand what are the human minds capable of. What can occur if there is something maybe really involved? Could there be health factors, mental factors that we have to get other specialists involved? And Carl and I have time worked with psychologists, psychotherapists, medical doctors, maybe even nurse practitioners or licensed practitioners. We have dealt with people that have had some form of basis involved because we seek to help the individual, but we also don't jump to the conclusion that it's paranormal either. There could be paranormal spikes within kind of the whole spectrum of things, but that doesn't mean that the root cause is paranormal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What we try to determine.
Right. I think one of the things that I'd like to get into a little bit to start things off here is one of the misinformation or misguided information is the difference between exorcists and what demonologists do. So like I think there's a difference between the two. And if you want to enlighten our audience, but what you think the difference is with
basically, I would say that every exorcist is a demonologist, but not every demonologist is an exorcist.
Right.
Okay.
That's a real calling and avocation when somebody is an exorcist. Now, I have participated in and even directed expulsions where an inconvenient presence is driven out, compelled to leave, and it's a psychodrama, really. The more involved, Ritualis Romanus is the Romani is the actual formal exorcism, constructed by the Catholic Church, and that's more involved. I'm not saying one is more effective than the other because sometimes an exorcism would not succeed where a more or less ritualized expulsion would.
Right.
But just to clarify, I equate the word supernatural with impossible. Synonymous terms for me. Supernatural, impossible. So that's my springboard there.
Yeah.
James, of course, is somebody he's read up on, the formal exorcism rite. And there's a lot of preparation involved if somebody's going to perform an exorcism, which is only supposed to be conducted by a priest, led by a priest, and an acolyte would be there, and there's fasting involved and, spiritual cleansing, confession.
A lot of preparation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't just jump into it. You got to make sure you're pure because then you're not as vulnerable. No one will attain the perfection they're seeking, but you've got to come to terms with your own belief and own faith to jump into that stage of exorcism.
Right.
Yeah, and like Carl said, there's a lot of psychological elements to it because you have why a lot of people do the fasting, why a lot of people do that situation is because you have to really subtract the negative in your life, subtract the gluttonous like the gluttony in your life, the lust. You have to cut a lot of what people call sins, vices,
less worldly,
out of your real life because. Even if there is not a demon involved, let's cut out the cake and say that there is no demon in play. How can you be an influence in somebody's life? I do believe it is an invocation that occurs in some form, but how can you be that sway in that person's life if you're bringing your outside influences in, trying to outsway their opinion because of what's going on? Because even though there could be a demon involved, oppression occurs at all times in that situation, but when the will breaks is when a possession can occur because if you really, really understand the soul and the body, only one soul can inhabit the body at a time, right? So when the soul's kicked out, the demon kick comes in and that is when you're possessed. But basically, it's not a perfect science, and of course, this is not maybe the full explanation, but in reality, it's the person's will, the person trying to come back and able to overcome.
That's another challenge.
Free will.
To convince the free will, like Rush would say, to convince the subject that they have control and they are actually performing their own exorcism. They are commanding that spirit to leave their house, their abode, and to leave their other abode, their body and their mind.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, like exorcism is not successful unless the host can be received at mass at the end of an exorcism. It is not successful because the whole point of what the host is through the transubstantiation of what, of course, the Eucharist is that when you're taking that in, that is the body of Christ, right? That is the Holy Spirit. So if you can't take that, then you cannot put the Holy Spirit in your body. So in reality, in the Catholic rite of exorcism, unless you can take the host, then the exorcism is not successful.
Because that's regarded as a miracle, isn't
Yeah.
it? That transubstantiation where the host is taken, and the wafer and the
Right.
wine, and that, there is the belief that is actually transmuted into the body and blood of Jesus Christ. So someone under a stage of possession cannot perform that sacrament or cannot partake of that sacrament because two objects cannot occupy the same space at one time.
Wow.
So the holy and the demonic cannot
The Holy
coexist.
Spirit.
So you would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is I even though Carl has been in some form of expulsion, I have never truly been in a ritualist Romanus rite of exorcism. I've been part of minor exorcisms, which is an extreme blessing over a house that is said to have demonic infestation. So I've been part of a minor rite of exorcisms, but I've also been part of deliverances.
Those are real too.
Which those are real.
Those are spiritual matters.
So then there's there could be a demonic haunting, right? And then a demonic possession, or does it always lead into a possession? Like
not always. Depends on the people, I think, right, Carl? Would you
Yes,
say
there is
the will?
Potential with many people for possession, full-blown possession.
Mhm.
It's not inevitable, no, not from the start.
It could it's Padre Pio. I use it as a reference a lot because it's a religion that people can look at. Padre Pio, was under oppression every day of his life, and he never gave in because agape, the true love of God, was in his heart at all points and times. He never wavered to this demonic oppression. So yes, you can deal with being oppressed or infestation, but it's I think Carl would agree that it is how you feed it. It's the invitation. It's how you communicate. You think it's not what it is at first. You start feeding into the fear. You start feeding into the element of more being the battery, giving the juice, allowing it to be powered up.
Mm-hmm.
The possession occurs. And of course, for possession to occur, once again, you have to allow it to take you over by either giving up or unknowingly giving permission that it can do so. Nothing can control you, even in physical form. And a person can't tell you what to do unless you listen to them and do it. You can always say no. So it's in the same manner, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I could equate that to using metaphor would be hunter in the woods. It's also applied to a warrior, and he's threatened. This hunter, this woodsman, he's threatened by two wolves. One is a gray wolf. One is a black wolf.
Mm-hmm.
They're both ferocious, and they're both threatening to him. One's on one side, the other's on the other side. They get the gray wolf and the black wolf. And he asks the wise man of the woods, he says, which is the stronger wolf? I'm fearing these wolves, but which one is the stronger that I must come up against? And the wise woodsman says, it is the one you feed.
Metaphor,
Sense,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to feed? What are you going to have a preponderance for? You concentrate more on the fear,
Right.
Possession, the dread, the daily dread. Oh, the demons, everywhere I turn, it's going to be there. Then that's going to feed off itself, and that's going to be the stronger impulse.
Yeah.
However, if somebody is propelled by past trauma, which has been unresolved, manifest as hatred and resentment, which I think we all have a degree of that.
Right.
Who drives on the highway to work and back every day is going to have some road rage, going to have some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gonna utilize your inner demons against you.
Yeah, that's just it. Inner demons. The demon loses power when you view it as a metaphor, an aphorism or a metaphor.
And past tense too.
Yeah.
You put it behind you. Yeah.
Right. You put it behind it. that's, I think, what is important with, and many psychological issues, including demon oppression, is to objectify it, to view it. Not, you have to have some feeling about it, but not so much dread it or flee from it, or, what do you want from us? Why are you here? That's going to give the demon that's going to create the demon if it wasn't there already.
Yeah.
But to keep it at a distance, so I know there's something. I identify it as a demon. Let's analyze this. I'm not sure what this is. Let's just look at it. And every time you do that, it gets a little more distant and a little safer from it. Mm-hmm. Take it seriously because it's property of your mind, but objectify, analyze it, and every time keep it a little more distant.
You lose his power.
The assault approach doesn't usually succeed.
No, you can never win because you put too much. Into it.
And it's funny how people will say that I've advised people to invoke the Holy Spirit. Whatever your religious view, bring on the Holy Spirit. Extend the invitation; it will come. Oh yeah, well I didn't. It came right back. The demon was right there. People don't think that the Holy Spirit has any strength to it because it doesn't get as much press. Mm-hmm. Demons are popular.
Yeah.
Cam Newton just said, "Feed the focus, not the hatred."
Yeah.
Feed the focus.
Yeah, there you go. The Vatican and the highest church, let's get into they started to train more people now into being more of exorcists.
Right.
There are more exorcists being recruited. Right. And now the Vatican, of course, is its own nation. The Vatican is recognized as a charter, as a nation. They have their own president. They have their
own leader, which is
the Pope. And they are recognized as a nation, and they do have vast resources.
Right. My thing is with now having that in play with modern day exorcisms and exorcists involved. Yeah. I kind of find it rare to see exorcists from a church that has demonology knowledge, so to speak. Do you find that is that a separate thing for an individual to learn on their own, or does the church encourage to learn and study demonology along with being an exorcist?
I could at least feel that. Well, there is immense power in being recognized by an organization that is, has been around for centuries. In the Middle Ages, there was the Vatican. It's called by different names then, but there was the Vatican, the Holy City. The Holy Emperor ruled over that, and concurrently with the Pope, and then the papacy gained more prestige and power with time. But when you are invested with power by this long-standing institution, there's a lot of power in that because you don't feel you're going into battle alone. You've got plenty of backup there. Been trained in this, If somebody's going to study it on their own and make a sincere effort to battle demons and perhaps ward them, if not cast them out of persons, they're on shaky ground. That's what I have done.
Yeah.
But when you are ordained and vested with the power of an exorcist, a lot is put upon you, a lot of burden and a lot of power too, because you're not just relying. It's not just I am the exorcist. I command you, evil spirit. It's like you're commanding in the name of Jesus and God, and and Holy Scripture. So you get a lot of backup there.
Yeah.
I was told something when I went through seminary, because I am an ordained deacon, and I went through Catholic seminary. One of the craziest things I heard was that if a priest is drunk and they perform the sacrament of communion, right? And they're presenting the Eucharist, and they put the intent and the word into it, and with their meaning of it, they can still be the beacon for that to occur because it's the intent, even though they were drunk and they had vices in their life. It's a bad. I know it sounds so bad.
You are going to have. How do you know you're not going to have a bunch of just out there with the show? Because people all over.
Well, come on,
all over the globe watch the show and listen.
Now I know many priests that drink and come on, you can watch the news of what other priests have done ungodly things, but
you're so controversial.
But No, it's
What is the advantage of inebriation, though? I don't.
But in all seriousness, though,
It's too late for that.
But in all seriousness, though, is if the Exorcist is fascinated in the aspect of demon or demonology, they're not fascinated in those forms. One of the other things I was always told is that you have to focus on the priesthood before you focus on the sacramental of exorcism. And exorcism is not a sacrament. It's not one of the seven. It's a sacrament. So it is not the major focus of why you do what you do.
Yeah.
So an exorcist is a person that is, yes, very well versed in demonology and other forms of theology and Christology and all of the spectrums of the branches of theology and other religions. So, but their main cause and situation is to present and give host to, and God to the people. That is their first mission, and their second mission is, of course, to be soldiers of God. And usually they are picked for that role, but that's also one of the reasons that I prefer to have to stay a permanent deacon, because the priesthood is something that you have to take here, and I think people do abuse it, and I think people do it for the wrong reason. But I think if you really go that route and you do pass on, even if people don't believe in God in the form of Christianity, but if you still provoke goodness in people and you say a meaning, you really should truly believe in that. And it's not that I don't believe in good, but I think that's a step that you really have to take and be unionized with, and not going for the wrong reason, and not going to become an exorcist, because if you do that, you're going to go a downward spiral that's going to cause a lot of pain and sorrow in your life.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, James, because that was going to be a segue into my next question for you guys. Is because of TV and the media and the Vatican now involved in training exorcists. To me, it takes a special person, and for some it's a calling. For some, it's like you said, you're a soldier of God, and spiritual warfare, and you got to have it in you in order to do it, but do it for the right reasons. But I see more people out there just kind of doing it for the wrong reasons. Like, they want to do it for the fame. They want their 15 minutes of fame. They think they could be put on TV because of it. What's your advice for people that are thinking seriously of becoming a demonologist or an exorcist, or vice versa?
You go first on that.
Okay, well, then you must confront the initial question of, quod est veritas? What is truth?
Yeah.
Always seeking what is, the real, what is a solid platform for your quest, Why are you into it? Self-examination, If you're looking for thrills, I would not, the name is thrilling, the name is exciting, demonologist, but in my experience, demonology has been a lot of listening to audio recordings and looking at video footage and counseling people, which is valuable, of course, and conducting interviews, and it becomes tedious. It's like, when are we going to get to the drama? When do we actually confront somebody who's got a spirit in them and all that? So it's something to approach soberly and prudently. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, because you're probably not going to get on television, and if you do, you might be kind of a freak show. Oh, they got a demonologist on now. Let's see what does he run into? Because people naturally are drawn toward the excitement, the dark side, something a little different, bizarre. So you have to have a genuine desire to help people, and you try not to lose that along the way. But you're going to be concerned about people.
Yeah.
And a strong faith, right? You got to have a strong faith in God.
And I think also too, depending on your
platform,
Also, I think depending too on what your, of course, belief system is, I think you also have to be not unwavering in your faith as well, but you have to be willing to deconstruct your walls and look at it in a 360 view. You have to look at it in many different perspectives. And if you're not able to do so, then maybe that role is not fit for you, because you shouldn't be taking your opinion into this. You should be looking at it in many different perspectives. And I think too with Carl and I don't know, I can't speak for Carl, but every time I've gone on an investigation or worked with a client at their home, I've learned something new or analyzed something different that I maybe didn't do before.
Oh, you can speak for me because I concur.
Yeah, and I've learned something new every time, and I've gotten better. And I'm no expert, and so to say, but I have a lot of field experience. I have a lot of book knowledge. I have a lot of different. I'm ordained in the Church of Christ. I'm ordained in the Catholic Church. I have a degree in theology. So and many other different platforms. And Carl's like the dictionary, walking dictionary, and he's a multiverse himself of many different thoughts and understanding. So like
I'm practically a multiplex.
You're multiplex. you have to be able to deconstruct your walls, because if you're not, then you will eventually allow yourself to be what is at front, and that can't be so.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like when I first was brought under James's wing, when James and I first kind of hooked up and connected to one another, I wanted to learn more about demonology because I felt it was a good, powerful tool for our team to, know more about it. Because we got very lucky over the years and never ran into that situation where we needed that knowledge of how to handle it. But she asked me flat out, she's like, is this a road you want to go down? Because if you want to be this type of individual, you have to have strong faith. You have to be, know the kind of workload that's ahead of you. You got to be that, particular person to take on that kind of thing. And that's why I was getting into that part of, bringing that up. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, a lot of introspection is required. I'm very self-effacing when it comes to my approach to demonology. I mean, I'm quite humble about it. It's like I said, what am I doing here? Trying to help people, advise people when I don't, what the heck is a demon? It's purely a psychological implement, and I actually waded into this field before the title. I heard Ed Warren referred to as a demonologist, but I hadn't said, "Oh, that's who I want to be." Well, I did when I first heard Ed bring a lecture, and that was April 1972. I said, "That's what I want to be when I grow up," But I did not aspire to demonology. I'd already performed an expulsion and researched, done my basic reading in demonology, and spent 4 months in Puerto Rico researching Santeria and demonology. And it wasn't until I saw somebody brought a magazine article to me, and they said, Carl Johnson, the demonologist. I like better when they put my middle initial, L. I said, Carl Johnson, the demonologist. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll buy that, Now, of course, I'm self-trained, but that's by getting down into the trenches and all that.
Yeah.
Benefiting from other people's experiences, including Ed Warren.
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody could convince me I'm not a demonologist, They say, well, you're not this. You're not ecumenically trained.
You're not a
you haven't taken the
demonologist.
sacrament in a long time. And I said, well, okay, here's my demonologist badge. I won't be a demonologist. I'll go back to it next month, But it's more like a reference term to me than a title. I do demonology, so I'm a demonologist.
Somebody's got to do it.
Get on in, wade through it. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody. It's not really an unpolitically correct word, because even though a lot of people hear the word demon and then jump to Christianity, demon has been used in many different forms.
And it's a fanciful word itself.
Many different forms in the same in the same way for the same reason. Like demonic forces were in Judaism. They were in Hinduism. They were in many different forms and religions and folklores and myths and mythologies. So, and the root word demon comes from Greek. They were overseers of the gods. They would spy on humans. If they would do something wrong, they would report to the god, and the gods would then do merciful things to them. But so it really doesn't fall away from kind of like the whole storyline of from one religion to the other religion, because all religions garnish from many of the same civilizations that it breaches from. So it's very interesting. Demon has been around for a very long time, even before King James. So it's a thoughtful thing to look at. Yes, a lot of it back in the day was, of course, schizophrenia and a lot of psychological ailments that
mental health. Yeah.
Or going to be an excuse for lustful thoughts. You know, it's succubus. Coming into my mind, controlling my thoughts and my impulses.
But that doesn't detract from the fact that if God does exist, which I do believe God does exist, that there could be a non-corporeal entity or non-corporeal species out there that could be a demon. But I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is the human mind. But that doesn't, if consciousness for a long period of time has thought and understood the belief of evil, from the aspect of theodicies, right, where good and evil, karma, when that idea from Epicurus started coming and formalizing into the understanding of humans, I think subconsciously we could keep continuing the thought that these things exist. And I really do believe maybe over time, through many different people, created certain beings that could emulate as demons. It sounds far-fetched, but it's not impossible. The human mind is
very capable of producing these things.
Very capable. It's like
shadow forms.
It's a supercomputer on crack, if not more. So yes, humans sometimes overthink what we are and think we're more important than what we really truly are.
Humanocentrism.
But our brain is really fascinating, and
I don't know what I'd do without mine some days.
Well,
I feel like I've left it in the glove compartment.
And the field of neurology and even the paranormal has many connections to neurology because, of course, if you look into why people see spirits, the pineal gland, it's only melatonin or nothing at all. It was like and now it really has more of an understanding that actually sends electric signals out, which could help with your bioelectric field that Carl likes to talk about. Right. So there's a lot of things that connect that have been talked.
Wait till I start talking about my paraparticle theory. That'll be a short.
Well, that's like one of the things I want to bring up, guys, is we can heavily get into this. Why is it that some people, like one person will see an apparition with 5 people in the room, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the other 5 people didn't see it, only that one person. So why is only that one person? Is it something?
I find that very frustrating because that's what happens to me. And I am not like, Uncle Louis, your father, he's standing behind us, just not me.
Yeah.
I will go years without seeing a ghost, and I can't predict if I will. Then James and I, Elise and another associate, we were at the Oliver House in Methuen, Mass, and that was the last time. That was October 5th of last year, 2020. And that was the most recent time I've actually seen a ghost. When I seen, I mean, objectively, empirically, like I'm seeing you folks, saw the ghost. I didn't get an impression like, ooh, the air's getting thinner. There was nothing like that.
Right.
I just happened. Our host was talking about we were in the earth, standing on the earthen floor of the basement. She had some reason to believe that there was somebody buried there because she actually found phalanges, finger bones there, and they are now, owned by the state police forensics. She'll never get them back. And psychics went down there and said, you have a woman buried down here. Mm-hmm. Now, as soon as she was talking about it, that was a good story anyway. And I saw this bright purple, like a flash. I thought it was an electric panel. The room was the wall of that basement room was further back. But I thought that must be the wall. I'm seeing an electric panel. It was bright, like fuchsia colored, like purplish. And I looked, and I'm looking at this thing, and it was like a rectangle that opened up, like a dimensional rift. It just opened up, and there was something suggestive of a woman's face in this. With the old-fashioned style of having the hair up.
Yeah.
I knew if I called to the guys, nobody's going to see it or it'll be gone. I was able to see this for 3 seconds. It's a long time to see a ghost.
Wow.
1, 2, 3 beats, and then it collapsed. It's gone.
Yeah.
So I said, time is 7:55. Mark that, please. I'll tell you why later.
Yeah. Even though nobody saw it, though,
it's frustrating, though.
Which gives credence to his story is that
because it's me.
Well,
That's why it's me.
not just that it's Carl, but everybody else that were there that night had some sort of
Yes, we
experience
did. Collectively, we did.
hearing that should not have been able to be replicated in the era we are. Yes, we were near a main road.
Yeah, mine just happened to be a visual one.
But
you had other things happening as
we
well.
heard
Auditory.
scurrying of feet. You know,
Yes.
yes, it is old wood. So when you do walk, sometimes the impression happens afterwards. You hear the sound. But we heard the scurrying. None of us scurried. You can hear when like it's a little kid.
I don't think I scurry anymore.
No,
I can't remember the last time I scurried.
For people that don't know what scurry is, this is scurry.
I like to see Carl do that.
It's my scurry. I scurry if I need to. I can scurry. But I just don't do it regularly. It's not my thing anymore.
But in all seriousness,
I scurry at home.
But other people like Elise and our associate and Christy who led the tours and Carl, we all had different things occur.
Yeah.
So we were able to put those puzzle pieces together. And of course, yes, we knew it was a haunted location, but we all came in there with an open mind. Like we weren't there to seek the power. It was more of a historical tour, check out the location, but we also were able to have experience.
Let's just say we weren't disappointed with our time
No,
there, a
we
few
weren't.
hours there.
I love that place.
Yeah.
Their location, Oliver House.
Oliver House does not disappoint.
Cool. Yeah, that's up north by you guys.
Middleborough, Massachusetts.
Middleborough, yep.
Yeah, very cool. I've heard a lot about it. So, what was my next question? So we were talking about the paranormal and why is it one person sees it and the other five people in the other room don't. One of my issues with a paranormal investigation, me personally, is again we brought up earlier, the start of this conversation about free will. Now, when we communicate with spirit or ghosts, based on the lore that was given to us to the location that we go to, we don't really know what we're communicating with, and you're inviting just about anything to communicate with you, and you're not necessarily know if it's a demon or not. And it's that free will, and you're inviting it to communicate with you. Would that be potential for danger for that person to have demonic haunting around them?
Yeah, of course, it's potentially dangerous depending on the degree of receptivity on the person who's, believes that they're in danger. I just don't. I'm not into saying whoever's here, speak to us, come through, penetrate the veil, speak to us, because you generally don't get anybody penetrating the veil. You don't hear anything, but.
Sounds kinky, actually.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here who wants to communicate with us? You're just inviting anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Now, if you just want results,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, there are times where the lamp will turn over. You're a thump on the wall there, whatever, in tandem with that, making that invitation, extending that invitation. But yeah, you shouldn't do it indiscriminately. I don't think, because it'll either nullify results or you get something unwanted. But I think all of the paranormal researchers have done that at one time or another, like including myself, of course.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, speak to us. We are here for you. And so some people are going to have a bad experience or an alarming experience from that. I've conducted seances as an entertainment. I've done that several times. I've done that at Captain Grant's in Preston, Connecticut. Captain Grant's Inn. I've done that at Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
USS Salem.
Yeah. USS Salem. James and I did that.
Successful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But talk about, I got to say it was worth it because we really got good results. Music playing from an earlier era. Nobody knew the source. Person went under, I'd like to call it channeling rather than possession.
Yeah, channeling.
And all kinds of changes in the atmosphere and noise, extraneous noises. Yeah, so sometimes you hit pay dirt with that seance thing, But yeah, some people, and when I conducted the experiments, I'll call them, the seances in Slater Mill and, the site of the American Industrial Revolution, open, for tours. On Halloween night, 2 successive years, I conducted a seance. And by the way, I'm thinking, how do I get myself into this? This is going to be 2 hours of me sitting there and hoping something happens. Nobody's going to be objective. It's going to be like, we want something to happen. This is a ghost hunt. At least I can talk during it, like walk around, come through. And both those seances in successive years, people had to get up and leave early because something happened with them, because they get shoved, because the door opened and closed, bang, 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 which is a very alarming thing when it happens. And one person lost control of their bodily functions and had to mop the chair. I mean, that's a successful seance.
Yeah.
And another couple got engaged by the Blackstone River by Slater's Dam because they planned it. He had planned to propose to her. So, boy, gangbusters seances, you just don't know. Some people are going to have and I'm sure the person who was startled in both those times, the people did not sleep well that night. But when it's something like that, and people buy a ticket to attend a seance, and 200-plus-year-old mill, they're going to want to be a little scared. That's kind of the bonus. You want a scary experience.
Yeah, that's the entertainment factor of the paranormal.
I would not do that same experiment in the Trans-Allegheny lunatic asylum. I wouldn't do it in some, or an abandoned hospital, a mental hospital. I really wouldn't conduct it there, no matter how objective I purport to be. I wouldn't take that on.
Yeah, I think too. You have to, and I think in some form, Carl said, I think you have to understand anytime you try to talk to something that is not seeable by most natural people,
which makes it scary.
But uninviting, unknowing. That does lead to dangers, and it could lead to dangers in the form of you actually maybe do get something that attaches to you or seeps off you. But maybe also there's psychological ailments that occur from traumatic experiences, and you deal with something that creates a post-traumatic stress disorder situation. So there's a lot of different things that can occur when you're dealing and dabbling with the paranormal. Because yes, when you're hitting nails with a hammer, there is physical knowing of damage that you can miss and hit your hand. There's many different physical replications of where you can do something, and there could be dangerous elements to it, and you still do it, and maybe there is no danger that occurs, no injury, but it's like
sometimes you do miss.
It's like throwing a dart in a dark room with a bunch of people, and you can't see, and you throw that dart.
That's a fun game. Have you done that? I haven't.
No, I haven't. that could be the paranormal.
You have safety goggles for that one.
Because,
wow, you can take out somebody's eye.
Yeah.
But you sure you haven't done that?
No, I have not. Thank God. But it is dangerous, and so it's so forth in so many ways. There's a lot of dangers in life. Life is very beautiful, but there are many things that can bite you in the butt, and the paranormal does create a little bit more of that envelope.
You're in a new arena, and an unfamiliar one.
Right.
You have to be careful. You have to tread, but also to be a real, truly well-versed paranormal investigator, you also have to investigate situations in many different forms and fashion as well. Yes, as much as I don't agree with it, and people should, I have used provocation. I have role-played. I have done different situations.
We've done that. Yeah.
I have tried to command something to occur in very bad vernacular and said very bad words. But I have investigated in many different ways to see if there's many different situations or occurrences and changes. If I reacted one way to the environment or what could be there, would it react a certain way?
Well, conversely, it's notoriously difficult to conduct experiments in the paranormal because you don't get the same results even in the same environment, and trying to replicate those conditions,
True.
you're gonna get askew results every time.
But you do in different locations. I won't provocate anymore. I've used religious provocation still to this day, but
in the same stop that provocating.
And in the same form though, I have tested different theories. I have made somebody believe there was a ghost in their house. Not a friend of mine, but it sounds mean. But I made somebody believe there was a ghost in their house, and eventually nobody died in the land. And the rest of the house was built by them, and they eventually started hearing things, and I was a part of that. I heard things too, and never had.
Did you bring in a ghost? That
you created your own haunting.
I think
glad I didn't get my vaccination from you then. I'll say.
But to be honest, being a tech guy formerly, take a computer programming at college and Cisco networking, and you have a CCNA and trade school. Like looking at the trade thing and being, of course, in the HVAC field and understanding the infiltration, exfiltration of air, and how static pressure works and how static electricity works. Like a lot of the tools we use in paranormal investigations, unfortunately, are hokey, and they could have.
Well, they weren't designed for that.
They can have a possibility of positivity. Most of the times, 90% of the times, they're false positive. You know, EMF meter, we keep them constant.
But they give you something. You know,
they give you something.
They give you a noise. They give you that word that give you a voice.
A lot of it is hokey pokey, unfortunately, but. You know, it's the best we have. Like, I think audio is still some of the best ways you can understand what's possible. Yes, there is a possibility of transmission of radio waves occurring, and you pick that up. You can't see radio waves. You can't see electronic magnetic waves. You can't see EMF.
But they exist.
So you can get bleed-throughs in many different frequencies.
Contamination.
And it can occur. But you can lead upon audio, you can lead upon video. If you see, like, a cup, imagine this is a table, and you see the cup move, and there's no fans, and you know the understanding of the environment.
You're not going to provoke the cup, are you?
You know, you can understand the house, and scientifically you capture a cup movement without any pressure changes.
Which a group I know, Oracle Paranormal Research Society, did that in a bar. Straw was levitating, and I know that's.
But you have to understand the paranormal when you do it. Yes, you can dabble and have fun and play with the toys and have all the lights go on and feel like a kid again. Yes, it is fun. I do it too, of course. But you have to understand, if you're really going to get into it and really start poking your nose into it, you really have to understand the many different layers to the onion.
There's a man who leads a life of danger. Everyone he meets, he stays a stranger. Every move you make, another chance you take. You'll live to see tomorrow. Demon agent man, they've given you a number 666 and taken away your name. You youngins can't relate.
I asked about the Ouija board and what. You know, because especially with young children, I remember doing it as a teenager, and you know, when you're like a young and impressionable teenager, and you ask it questions, and I'm like, who am I going to marry? And I remember it spelling out Kevin He. So for like half my life, I was looking for an Asian man named Kevin, which I never met. You know,
I'm not. My name is not Kevin.
So, you know, and then.
Okay, the show you said is about revealing revelation, so let's get it out there. Your name is not Kevin. Your name is Matt.
I don't know who Kevin is.
But you were brought into this search for Kevin.
But no, but really, what is the difference between, you know, you're doing a Ouija board and you're doing EVP?
Right.
So, you know, you're still inviting. You don't know what you're inviting in.
Yeah. I understand her point.
Narrow margins of definition there. Yeah. Because if it is verboten, if it's ill-advised to use a spirit board, to make it generic, use a spirit board and try to communicate with an unseen entity, are you any less in the wrong if you're doing tarot cards, you know, or using dowsing rods because you're using an unseen mechanism, an unseen, you know, or like EVP. Now that's borderline, because EVP, I consider that a scientific experiment.
Okay.
You know, you're actually using an electronic device, a magnetic electronic device, and not just hearing a spirit voice, but hopefully capturing one, so you can replay that and can analyze it. But is it wrong?
Is it dangerous? Yeah.
Is it even dangerous? Well, somebody freaks out about it. Yeah.
Your opinion.
That's why it's, you know, not, you know, always the worst thing, I suppose, to ask a spirit questions, because that is marvelous when something without a body, you know, without a physical containment for that personality, communicates. You know, is responsive. It's rare, but I mean, I've had that experience. The first EVP I ever recorded, I remember it was August 23rd, 1973. It was at the time I was investigating. You were a little girl or not even born, but it was when I was investigating the Perron house on Round Top Road in Harrisville, which 40 years later became The Conjuring movie. I wasn't at the house. I don't think it had anything to do with the farmhouse, but I didn't know people could get a spirit voice. I never heard of that before. And I'm recording with my friend Mark Buchanan, so just recording our conversation and play back the record. Of course, we were talking about Satanism at the time. I don't know if it's related, but we're just having a conversation. We play back the recording. I didn't know you could get strange stuff on recording. So play it back. Towards the end of the recording, all of a sudden, we hear this, what sounded like a voice. We hear like tapping sound, and that's kind of strange. And then we hear, I don't have it with me. I think my brother has an old copy of it, but it's like, someone help me. And then more, I said, we looked at each other. It's a voice. That sounds like a voice in slow motion. So my friend Mark at home, at his house, he had a recorder that would accelerate. So he sped it up, and it becomes like kind of a woman's voice, but clearly says, Carl, help me. Help. Yeah. Like that.
Wow.
I never knew what to make of that. I mean, it's fun to theorize about. Is that a voice from my future? In my future? Is it a discarnate spirit? Is it something my sister and I called in on the spirit board? Why ask? All right, I want to help you, but tell me how. I will if I can. I attempted a spirit rescue, like Move On and all that, but I never really got any results from it. That recording was not replicated, but it stands singular. And that's what introduced me into spirit board. Then a few years later, I'm watching In Search of 1978 with Leonard Nimoy.
Yep.
I say Nimoy. And what was it? What could it possibly have been? And they did a segment on EVP, electronic voice phenomena, which has been around since the mid 1950s, or 52. And then there's people are recording spirit voices. That's what I got. I didn't mean to. I don't know what to do with it, but Carl, help me. Help. Now, what would somebody say about this? Somebody might say that's a demon trying to lure you in. Well, to what?
Right.
I don't understand how that can be advantageous to a demon. Is it a spirit that's lost? Yeah, but I don't know what lost means. I wish I could help. It elicited my sense of compassion, but is that my own voice from the future? I would have done a lot of things differently, but I don't think I can go back and change things.
Right.
So that is complete mystery. But it stayed EVP, and it was interactive with me. And it's Slater Mill. Like we've asked questions, doing the ghost meets there.
And something intelligent because it used your name and knew who you were.
Yeah. And sometimes they will. My brothers had more experience with EVP than I. Those mini cassette recorder tends to capture voices, and we've gotten spirits answering us. Like Keith, my brother, with this group near New England Anomalies Research, he went back to what became known as the Conjuring House, the farmhouse on Round Top, when it was owned by the successive owner Norma Sutcliffe and her husband Jerry. My brother did an investigation there, and Norma at the time said, "Oh well, the spirits. We know the spirits are here, but they don't bother us. They move books around when we travel. When we come back, we find things rearranged." So my brother's walking up the stairs. He's recording, plays back the recording, and you hear him walking up the stairs, and you hear a voice says, like kind of a masculine voice says, "We're still here." Clear as anything. And I made a joke to Norma. She said, well, Russ Brissett, he was downstairs in the nefarious basement, the house on Round Top. He said, "Where's your other investigator?" He's plowing around down there. I said, "Oh, he's downstairs relieving himself." I made a poor taste joke, and apparently, because you didn't think it was funny. I said, "Oh, he's downstairs relieving himself." And Keith plays back the recording, my brother does, and he still got it. He got the recording. Wow. It says, "Oh, he's downstairs relieving himself." And then I wisecrack. And then you hear a voice says, "Don't lie."
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's commenting like somebody in the room, commenting on what we're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if this relates to demonology, but it certainly does relate to the paranormal and
It does.
investigation.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Unless somebody interprets that as a demon, because that is an interpretation. But, because human spirits could not possibly say that. Maybe not. But a demon could. That's just as outlandish, oh, no, that's not a human spirit, because the human consciousness cannot survive bodily death. So it's a demon. It's a fallen angel.
Right.
It's kind of too,
Yeah, but we can go to heaven and embrace love and be with our family again. But how do we have a consciousness?
Yeah. Heaven must be missing an angel.
Yeah, right.
Missing an angel. Because you're here with me right now.
Yeah, but then you have some, not everybody, but some people think, well, you should feel the vibe or use your judgment if it's a demon or a negative spirit or a good spirit. But then my thing is, how can you decipher the difference between it portraying itself as what it's portraying itself as? You really can't tell the difference.
Some people will claim to have the gift of discernment, where they can discern if it's a bad spirit or a good spirit. But how do you know outside of a subjective feeling? Oh, I know. I have the gift. I have the gift, so I know. Okay, I don't.
I think
More power to you.
I think in some form it does go to not to make us feel important, but yes, we do have a lot of these tools, and there are some true scientific tools you can use out there that do understand atmospheric changes to a little minute detail. But I think it is a lot of the time feeling as well, because a lot of the times that I've dealt with cases where I truly believe that there were demonic possession involved or demonic cases, there was always a difference in the atmosphere. And what I relate this to is I think we all have been to the point of every day waking up and hating going to work, hating being there, feeling the hate, and bleeding off.
Basically, hate straightening out the left leg because the knee hurts too much.
Or if you're not a hateful person, but you go to a very, very bad location where you work, and it draws on you every day, and it starts making you negative.
Like every job I've ever had.
I can tell.
Locations that have had this activity that we could qualify as that title of being something involved with the demon. I've always had that feeling I was being punched in the solar plex, that a very suppressive feeling of I don't want to be here, fight, fright, or flight. There's so many things that were going on with my internal self. And I'm a very strong-willed person. I really do believe in myself. And I know Carl does as well. But was a lot of times where I doubted myself. Why am I here? I'm not good enough for this. I can't help these people. Like, in those cases, those were a lot of the details that occurred. And it's really hard to understand the activity and qualify that to a certain situation. But you can see the traits within the individual and what they're going through and try to kind of piece it together. But I really do feel like if there is a demonic force or if there's something that could be related to that terminology involved, it's going to be not theatrical all the time, but the presence will be felt.
But you're aware of it.
There will be awareness that there is something different in there. There is something off.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been involved in places that have supposedly been the most haunted locations, and I've never had that feeling.
Right.
It's the most haunted location, the one you're in when things happen.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes it's the house in Round Top, colloquially called the Conjuring House. Mm-hmm. When stuff's going on there, that's the most haunted site in Rhode Island. When you're at Tavern on Main in Chepachet, and which I've seen, and a tablecloth lifts up, or you hear that crash and you don't know the source, the lights dim strangely, then it's the most haunted site. But when you're just calling out the spirit, can anybody want to say anything, and nothing happens for a long time, and suddenly it's not the most haunted site. When stuff is happening, it's really, Slater Mill was that way. When it's happening, when you hear a disembodied scream, a laughter, and you hear something that sounds like a sledgehammer hit the wall, then it's the most haunted site for that few minutes.
Yeah, every type of haunting, regardless of what's the title before, if it's a poltergeist haunting or it's a demonic haunting, every haunting, the human is the battery. I like to use the analogy: you put a battery in the toy, then the toy starts talking or having animatronics to it. It's moving.
Oh,
you take the battery out. It doesn't move. It doesn't talk anymore. It doesn't light up. So we're in the same point.
Even if you take our battery, our brain out,
yeah,
part of us, we don't really do much.
But but in reality, though, every haunting, we are part of the puzzle to it.
Yeah,
and
the human element, the human component.
Because
I don't even know if can a building, and we can't know. Well, yeah, you can, because you leave instruments out there. Does the haunting occur when nobody's there to receive it?
Well, of course, but I think
sometimes you leave a recorder going, you hear them have a little interaction.
But in the same token, I think even if we did leave a building, you think about it, sound waves dissipate and eventually disappear in a location, but sound waves do stay there for a little bit of time. So when we are there, and if we do give off a bioelectrical field, which is proven, right?
Yeah.
If we give that off, we leave traces of ourselves within the confines of that location. So even if we leave, there could be a little bit of emotions of what we left. And that's why, for most people to understand, is why for people of Christian faith and many different faiths, if you buy a house, they do a blessing of the house. So it cuts the cord of the past tenants of their emotions, their rituals.
Breaks the connection.
It breaks that connection.
Right.
So it's in that same retrospect.
Yeah. So when you guys have Duo Daemonologie and your approach to improving demonology versus the old time, what's your goal with your approach? Do you want to get it out there more on hands-on and investigation? When you go on an investigation, do you want to do it more with events, lectures? Like, what's your actual approach with it?
Actually, we try to blend both. I mean, we never totally diverged of the old ways, because there was a mystique and even a grandeur to the old approach to demonology. And I'm talking about 17th century, early 17th century. It's still a solemn, a somber, and an ominous, in a way, act to confront the demonic realm. You may analyze it and interpret it later, but then you're in that forum. So for a while we are back. We're not totally clinicians at that time, because the subject we're trying to aid, if it was a person being oppressed, they're not going to be too enlightened by what we say. Always to think of your mind. What are you not letting go of in your past? Sometimes you just got to go old school and confront it. Come out there, and then we are Duo Daemonologie in another aspect. Then we're dressed in our black, and then we are coming out and commanding a spirit to depart. So we know we're doing that because that's the proper approach, because we're in temporary ignorance. But yeah, that's one of the things that draws me to demonology is you're never totally diverged from or divested of this the old traditions. There is a place for that. There is a place for commanding the spirit, and intoning blessings, reading from scripture, because it seems to be effective. Mm-hmm. Maybe someday, I don't know, maybe someday we'll get to the point where we just discuss it and really don't, approach it, but for now, sometimes people need help, and that's what they respond to, so every once in a while we're back to, back to being somewhat like clerics and going into the darkened chamber, and then you feel like a demonologist,
Yeah. So you prefer to be more hands-on.
Yeah, if you know what we're saying here, sometimes of course it isn't part of psychodrama, but there's that dark and mysterious aspect to it.
Yeah, I think what you're saying too is very true. I think I think yes, we would like a hands-on approach, but I think also for me, it's been a while for me that of physically being involved with the case because of COVID. A lot of consultation through email, through phone call, a few in-person consultations. Yes. But in reality, a lot of the times, I think it's best for, even if it is a paranormal situation, for sometimes you don't even have to get involved because there is a way to disenable the situation and for them to overcome it without ever there being physical presence. But I also say, too, is if I don't hear anything, that means there's somebody that's not sleeping out there. And if I hear a phone call, that means somebody's in pain, regardless if it is a paranormal situation or not. And I don't like that. As much as I'd like to be hands-on, I think Carl as well, we also don't like to see anybody in dismay and not wanting to be in their homes, regardless of what situation it is. So I'm blessed when I don't have those cases. But there's never a day that I think Carl nor I don't stop reading about it or discovering new theories or topics.
It's always something new to
So we're hands-on in the literature aspect more so now, but we're always consulting, and I think with now the kind of this dissolution of COVID and hopefully getting back to normal, I'll be involved in cases physically more. But I have done investigations and been investigating. I know Carl has. We've had hosted of our own. So even though we have not necessarily dealt with personal, we have not stopped experimenting, investigating, and kind of understanding what's possible out there. And I think for you to be in a craft, you have to keep studying craft. It can be like a bicycle, and you can remember how to ride that bicycle after not riding one for many years. But in the field that we are in, it is better to be versed in the people that we're dealing with, and of course the ever-changing the ideologies and methodologies that exist.
Changing and hopefully evolving.
Right. I got you.
Well, we've been lecturing a lot lately because people I think are starting to understand we do have a voice, and it's not about the advertisement or being pompous or being egotistical, but I think we do have a message, and I think we lecture a lot more than we have before in the past, but I think that's because people understand our mission. And
they're getting an understanding of it.
And I think they like our personality, and I think
I hope so.
We're easy to relate to.
Sometimes they like
the topic. Some people don't like us, but it is what it is.
We like you.
Well, that's what counts. That's why we're on your show.
We do love you guys.
Well, we're not going on the show where they don't like us. Although we'll get invited to.
Hey, you know what they say? You kill people with kindness, and it doesn't do anything bad, my man.
Before last, we were at the Rochester, New York Winter
Parafest
and we touched some serious topics, but we had them like. I'm surprised nobody had to go to the bathroom. They were laughing so much. They stayed with us for the hour and a half, though.
Yeah.
And at the end, I said, you notice we're humorous. We have our humor. Today we are funny. Next time we might be sad.
Yeah.
And, people will be leaving. So those guys were sad. I agree. Those guys were just sad. They're sad guys.
We're all human.
Funny.
We're all human, right?
Oh yeah. Interestingly human. Can't escape it. It's like if you watch the episodes of MASH from the 90s. What were they on? Like 9 years of MASH.
Oh, yeah.
The Korean War went on for 9.5 years.
Yeah.
And Korean conflict. And the way Hawkeye and BJ, they all interact with each other, and Frank Pierce. That's kind of what we do. Is that gallows humor.
Yeah.
You take it seriously, but you got to lift above it sometimes, and
Yeah.
mess with it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. When you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you have to bring that, definitely.
And you have to be humorous too, because you think about it. Sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but you have to be humorous too in some form, because you can't always be serious. I think the greatest change you can, especially dealing with people, especially if they're sad and full of fear, the greatest medicine that you can give them is laughter. And something that Carl and I can do very much so, because we like to make people laugh, and we like to say stupid crap.
We always say stupid crap. If I couldn't laugh at myself, I wouldn't be able to shave in the morning. No, close that.
Oops. Yeah.
To be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause.
So I want to throw a monkey in the wrench with this really oddball question. This is a theory that's not new, but semi-new in the paranormal, where some psychic mediums feel that they're also engaging with potentially aliens from extraterrestrial worlds. And what's your take on the contact of possible demonic alien entities that we could be dealing with? There's that theory out there, and I don't know what's your opinion about that, but that's going around a lot. Ow.
I don't know. I like to think about it, though. That's when you get into theoretically relating angels and demons to alien presences. I mean, are these the spawn of other star systems? Some of these things. I mean, I wish they'd give us some answers, because that's you can't get definites, but there's some fascinating speculation there. That why are there sometimes, beyond people's imaginations, why is there an increase in reports of demonic activity and possession, all that, concurrent with the UFO flaps, UFO sightings? But it happened. It happened. The demographics are there.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you've got these now, there are, and this is, I state this categorically, there are alien presences, there are alien beings, there are unidentified craft in the skies. That can't even be refuted. It's been going on for centuries. These spacecraft that look very much like flying saucers by modern interpretation appear in Renaissance paintings. Mm-hmm. So what were the people seeing up there? There's a well-documented space war, sky war, with spacecraft from it's the 1530s, I think, in Nuremberg, Germany. And it's depicted in a woodcut. There's this celestial battle going on. What can be pondered is that, are they of terrestrial origin or some other star system? It's a simplification. It's easy to say that they come from other worlds, other star systems. That makes more sense.
Right.
But there are things, if you examine it, that don't make sense. Why, when even we have drones and we can probe the surface of another planet outside of our solar system, why do they need to come here? Why do they need to traverse that distance? And if it can be done,
right.
Why do they need to be here? If they're motivated by curiosity, why do they need to travel that far?
Well, then there's the other theory that they've already been here and that they've been on this planet for, whatever, how long.
I have to kind of go with that, yeah. Now, they could be of terrestrial origin. They could be some super science. It could be aliens working together with humans, and only a select few know. And the select few humans that know are scares the bejesus out of them, and they don't know how to handle it. I mean, it's fun. You can fill up the whole hour of your show just talking about that.
You can.
Yep.
And we'll have no answers, but it's fun as heck to talk about.
Yeah.
Because there is stuff. There's a basis to it. People wouldn't still be curious about it if there wasn't some basis to it. If people see UFOs, it happens frequently. Yeah. They're filmed. They're documented. But I think the alien presences, and I say alien, what else am I going to say? Because life goes on and business goes on as normal. A spacecraft could land, in the middle, probably not the White House lawn, but in the middle of Utah, exchange some thoughts with people and go back up. And life would still go on. People go to work the next day. People, wow, ooh, how can that be? But three-quarters of the populace, maybe, 4/5 of the people are going to say, that didn't really happen. Or, it's swamp gas. They're drinking. They want to believe it because that's what we do. We have an effective amnesia. Life will go on. Nothing spooks our race that much that we're not going to go on.
Right.
You say it's, though, from another country, and they've got this super science.
Yeah.
And they've got us under surveillance. Then it gets spooky. Then people don't necessarily go to work the next day. Are we going to be invaded by the Russians or what? What's going to happen? Jerry said these crafts.
Yeah. I like to think that it would be naive as a human species, I always say this, I throw this out there on my Facebook a lot because I think we're
Like your Facebook.
yeah we're naive as human species to think that we're the only ones in the universe in this vast,
Again, humanocentric thinking, cocoon thinking.
But we're also naive to think that what also exists out there is physical like us, and it could be interpreted that they are. Of course, if you really look at what demons and angels are, non-corporeal entities, but they also are slated to be also in the usage of the word celestial, and you could also say the word celestial coincides with the word extraterrestrial. So, in some forms, it's not on basis theory because Chariots of Fire is a great book, and Ancient Aliens is a great show. So it's possible.
I've had celestial tea, but I've never had extraterrestrial tea. It's got more body to it, I think.
But in all seriousness, though, it's possible. Maybe their way of travel, yes, they have UFOs. Maybe
it's funny how every time we talk like jerks, you come out and say, but get serious now and bring us back down to earth.
But there's some matter of thought maybe that if there are these beings, maybe they travel by thought as well. I
like that.
There's been adaptations of this through, of course, comic books and superheroes, but we also have to look at a lot of the basis of what we believe in as aliens nowadays, and a lot of that has to do with Baum, with Aleister Crowley. It has to do with L. Ron Hubbard with science fiction. And remember, aliens weren't a thing really in human civilization until L. Ron and science fiction was concurrent in human civilization. Yes, there were sightings and they were interpreted as gods. Hell, even when the Spanish went to Mexico, they were thought that they were Quetzalcoatl, right? They thought the Spanish were gods. So, there's been many misinterpretations of what people thought.
Quetzalcoatl, but that's 400 years ago. So,
well, yes, at least I knew what the god was
years
almost.
ago. But
They thought they were gods.
The winged serpent. Which
or the great pyramid.
Yeah.
Like who helped the Egyptians build the pyramid?
The aliens.
Yeah. Well,
two schools of thought on it again, most things.
Well, I think about it. I look at it in the building aspect of that. I'm in the trades, and I kind of look. There is, everybody. I think it is kind of not truly a fact, but a lot of people like to use the word of the basis that word, and I've used this before. But to this day, we could not build the pyramids to the correct
specifications that they had.
That's not incorrect. That is not incorrect to a certain degree. Yes, we could build those, but would they stay the law? Would they
stand the test of time?
Like they did? Probably not. Later, because the way we build buildings now are very lazy. We use plywood.
We're more about prefab and rapidity.
So
expedite it, get it up there.
So we could probably not build pyramids as they are nowadays, even with our. But it is what it is. We could build them, but they just want to stand the test of time, just like they would. There wouldn't be a wonder of the world.
No, that's going to go away. You know what? When you think about it, it's some people don't believe in the premise of ghosts. I mean, I've seen them. I don't explain them. I've seen them. I know they're real. I have my theories. But, I mean, you think of encryptids. They're wonderful. That's wonderful how you see anomalous animals sitting around, and sometimes they're filmed, and I know they're genuine at times. But you think of we at planet Earth. We are one of perhaps, and a very round figure, 200. I'll give the higher figure, 200 billion. You take 1,000. Takes you a few minutes to count to 1,000. Multiply that by 1,000 times. That's 1,000,000. Then you take that 1,000 times 1,000. Count that 100. Count that 1,000 times. So 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, and you got a billion. Because a billion is 1,000 million. 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Many, perhaps most of those star systems have planets around them.
Right.
Wouldn't it be amazing to think that we are the only cognizant life, the only life in the galaxy? And that's more fantastic than thinking there are other thinking beings on other planets. And we are one of hundreds of billions of galaxies, some of them vaster than ours, all of them with black holes in the center.
And there are Earth-like planets out there in the Goldilocks area.
Yeah, and the Goldilocks, what they think is the habitable area. And then you think that 1 trillion years in the future, oh my God, I hate these round figures. All right, a couple of trillion years in the future. Then entropy is the law, is the rule. Everything's because dark matter, whatever that is, nobody knows what that is. It's only known by inference. Pushes matter away, pushes the planets away from each other, pushes the galaxies away. Eventually, and it's accelerating. It's going. Eventually, this will all dissipate. Gravity will not be a force to contend with. Eventually, the molecules will use their gravitational field. You know, they'll lose that cohesion to keep their particles together. Then the atomic particles go out there, and what you've got is a bunch of cinders, you know, until they can't expand anymore. You got a little tiny infinitesimally small cinder. Now that to me is supremely disturbing for one thing, and it's I actually said this before. Neil deGrasse Tyson said it, but he probably says it better than I do. But and you got this nothingness, and once matter dissipates, and you only got these baby cinders. There's no relativity. There's nothing to relate. So time does not exist anymore. There's no beginning, no end. Oh, we had an end, but that end suddenly is non-existent. Yeah. It's not. That's suddenly our ending, our beginning, our ending are forgotten. Now, I don't think it's a stretch to believe that something can float around that resembles a person after they die. That's small potatoes compared to these galactic and celestial.
Yeah.
Conundrums.
And somewhere in there, I get you. I understood what you were saying.
Explain it to me. I'll watch your show again.
Not to cut you short, but I definitely have to be getting off because I have lovely work in the mind. I know everybody else does, but I'm a baby, and it was 100 degrees. And
this bakes us.
Yes. And
we're just about out of time.
Yeah, we're about out of time anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, we went right to your end then.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have time. We have time. We've got it.
Yeah. So, guys, I appreciate you, taking the time.
Our pleasure.
Real quick, tell everybody where they can find you. You have a website. Share your information.
Well, I have Facebook. James does not right now, but you don't live for Facebook. Well, some of us do. But we have a website, Duo Daemonologie, where, we have the antiquated spelling, how do you spell Daemonology? DAEMONOLGIE. But our website is Demonology, spelled the standard way with a Y, demonology.org. You go to we're so lucky to have domain. How did you find that?
I was just lucky.
Like finding a gold ring under a rock.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. So demonology.org, the ubiquitous Facebook. I'm probably the only Carl L. Johnson in the state of Rhode Island who's listed as a demonologist. So that's on my Facebook.
Yeah, don't look up Carl Johnson, because if you look up Carl Johnson, you'll get the guy from Grand Theft Auto.
Carl.
Yeah, I did. I looked up that animated series,
Yes,
and you know what?
Carl does like hot coffee, but not that hot coffee.
Yeah, I looked up Carl Johnson, and it's a fictional, of course, the racing driver. It's a fictional story, but his mother's name is Beverly. My mother's name was Beverly, and I told her about it. Yeah, his mother's name is Beverly. Like Carl Johnson. It's Panorama Paranormal, directed by Elise Gianmarco Carlson and myself. So you think, but people who have less trouble spelling demonology than they do panorama. Banana. Panorama Paranormal, Duo Daemonologie, but just if you remember nothing else, demonology.org.
Yeah.
All right.
And any events coming up you want to give a shout out to real quick?
Yeah, what do we got coming up?
Well, next month at the end of August, I believe the 22nd to the 23rd, we will be at Gettysburg Battlefield Dash. We are excited about that, and we are actually lecturing twice. We're doing a Duo Daemonology lecture, and then right afterwards, we are doing a demonology panel with, I believe, Carl, myself, maybe David Giuliano, and then Jeff Leeper as well, I believe. But I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. No, this is Gettysburg.
Gettysburg. Yeah, that's right. That way we do have a demonology panel.
Yes, we do.
That's got to be fun. The Demonology panel.
And it's Gettysburg. And last time we went to Gettysburg was for the Lookout House. We did an event there for SOS Team Paranormal camp. And he hasn't been back since. And this time we're going to explore.
Yeah, this time we'll get out in the countryside. You're going to be somewhat.
Yes, and eat at the Great Lincoln Diner. You guys going to be there this year too?
What's that?
You guys going to be there this year?
Gettysburg?
I don't think so.
Probably not this year.
Yeah, I think we're not going to be able to make it this year.
I hope you make one of these Rhode Island or Massachusetts events. You know?
Yes.
Would be happy to try to come. Definitely.
There'll be a Demonology panel. What I was mentioning, Mass PowerCon too.
September, yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big
17th
one.
through 19th of September.
And the 18th, we have one of the biggest things to happen in Demonology. We have a Demonology panel with Carl, myself, Keith Johnson, Mark Arvilla, Sandra Johnson, Nathaniel Gillis, Sean Austin, and I'm probably missing somebody else, but we have a plethora of very well.
That'll be moderated by Alicia Carlson,
who is historian.
Very respectable.
Yeah.
So we have impressive characters there.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll be well mannered. Do you think?
Maybe
So
possibly.
at least will monitor us.
But yeah, those are some of the events. But you can go to demonology.org, go to our website. That's our website. Or you can go to Duo Daemonologie and like Carl.
Maybe at the panel I'll be able to use my William Shatner impression. You know, this is our business. That's why we're out here.
There you go.
I could order this.
Beam me up, Scotty.
All right, guys. I'm going to end this here. Guys, have a great night. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, and be well. Take care of yourselves, and
now I'm more wound up than ever.
Thank you very much.
It was all that alien talk.
Have a good night, and love you guys. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. I know it was a very heavy topic for everybody. It was somewhat serious but funny at the same time.
That's right. We had a great time with
We had a great time with Carl and James.
Great guests.
Yeah, it's getting late. Fortunately, some of us get up really early. We have off. We have off for the next 4 days.
Yes, we do. Woohoo! Vacation.
Yeah, right. 4th of July is this weekend. Guys, I want to take the time to tell everybody to be safe. Have a great 4th of July. And, as always, I'm patriotic. So around the holidays, I want to extend my gratitude and my thanks to the men and women who serve our country, that fight for our freedom, and always remember the fallen, the PD, the great doctors and nurses and EMTs and PD, the fire department, all those great people out there during this difficult time of the pandemic. Hopefully we're, in the clear at the end of this. We're at the end of the tunnel of this. Hopefully next year we're back to normal at somewhat. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm hoping to have a really good guest for next week. I'm waiting to hear back from them. If I do, I'll make the announcement, and when I do, you're gonna be like, "What?" So I can't wait to make that announcement. I'm keeping it hush hush for now until I get the okay from this individual. As soon as I hear back from them, I will make that announcement.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So, guys, every Wednesday night, watch our show. For now, we may move it to another night later in the year, but we're not quite sure what night we're going to move it to. But we'll keep you guys posted about that. Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Catch our show on YouTube. Whenever you miss the live show, you can always go to YouTube and watch anytime you want. So that's the great thing about podcasts. You can watch them anywhere. Guys, have a great night. I'm beat.
I'm pretty tired
too.
too.
Have a great night.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Yep. Player.